"We have the most exciting news," my mother announced, practically glowing as she sat across from me at what I believed was a routine wedding planning lunch. I had my binder open, color swatches tucked neatly into plastic sleeves, vendor quotes highlighted and tabbed. I had been saving for 3 years for this day. Extra hospital shifts, skipped vacations, careful budgeting. October weddings aren't cheap, but I was proud that Michael and I were paying for everything ourselves. Mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Your sister Emily's 10th anniversary falls the same weekend as your wedding. Isn't that incredible timing?" I blinked. "That's close, I guess." Dad leaned back in his chair with the satisfied look he gets when he thinks he solved a complicated problem. "So we've decided to combine the celebrations. One big event, a wedding and a vow renewal. It'll be beautiful." I stared at them, certain I'd misheard. Combine them? My wedding is October 15th. That's been set for 6 months. "And Emily's anniversary is the 17th, Mom replied brightly. "It's practically the same weekend. It makes sense to celebrate both together. Think of how special that will be." Special. It didn't feel special. It felt like something was being quietly taken from me. "I don't want to share my wedding day," I said carefully. "This is the one day that's supposed to be about Michael and me." Dad waved a dismissive hand. "It's just one party, Claire. You can share the spotlight for a few hours. Family is about compromise." What they didn't mention in that cheerful announcement was who would be financing this compromise. "My name is Claire. I'm 28 years old and a nurse practitioner at a regional hospital. I've always been the dependable daughter, the one who shows up, pays deposits on time, organizes schedules, helps with emergencies, wires money when something breaks. My older sister Emily has always been the celebrated one. She married young, posts curated family photos online, and receives standing ovations for every milestone. When Emily had her first baby, my parents threw a shower that looked like a magazine spread. When she and her husband hit 5 years of marriage, they hosted a catered backyard dinner with a string quartet. When I got engaged, my parents said, 'That's wonderful,' and then asked about the date so they could check if it conflicted with anything important. For 3 months after announcing our engagement, everything seemed normal. I booked a lakeside venue. I chose burgundy and cream for the colors. I paid deposits. I felt, for once, like I was allowed to have something that belonged solely to me. Then came the brilliant idea. On Sunday dinner the following week, Emily clapped her hands together. "This is honestly perfect. We can renew our vows before your ceremony. It'll add depth." "Depth?" I repeated. "Yes," Mom chimed in. 10 years of marriage is such a meaningful example. It will inspire your new journey." Inspire. Somehow, my wedding had become the opening act to my sister's highlight reel. Within weeks, decisions started shifting without my input. The florist confirmed the updated color scheme, gold and ivory, Emily's choice. The caterer adjusted the menu to include her favorite dishes. The timeline draft labeled 4 p.m. as Emily and Daniel vow renewal, and my ceremony at 5:30. Why is her vow renewal first? "It flows better," Mom replied. "Guests will already be seated." The engagement party was worse. Dad stood up to toast. "We're here to celebrate Emily's incredible 10 years of marriage and Claire's upcoming wedding, of course." Laughter rippled through the room when he added, "Let's hope Claire makes it to 10 years, too." Starter marriage. That's what it felt like, a rehearsal for something more important. The financial conversation came quietly. Mom slid a stack of papers toward me one afternoon. "We've consolidated the vendor contracts." I scanned the total at the bottom. $63,000. "For both events?" I asked. "Well, since you're the one getting married, it makes sense that you cover the bulk of the expenses. Emily's renewal is symbolic. You're the bride." I flipped through the breakdown. Anniversary-themed decor, a custom cake topper with Emily and Daniel's initials, a commemorative video montage of their decade together. "This is mostly her party," I said slowly. Dad frowned. "You're lucky she's willing to share her milestone." Share? It felt less like sharing and more like being billed for someone else's celebration. Over the next month, it became obvious that my wedding had been repackaged as an accessory to my sister's anniversary spectacle. Invitations highlighted a celebration of love, Emily and Daniel, 10 years in bold script, with "and Claire and Michael's wedding" underneath in smaller print. I began documenting everything. Maybe it was the nurse in me, trained to chart every detail, but I saved emails, recorded planning calls, kept copies of revised contracts. Every time someone referred to my ceremony as secondary, it went into a folder. Meanwhile, Michael watched all of this with growing disbelief. "They're turning your wedding into a fundraiser," he said one night as we sat at our kitchen table. "You know that, right?" "I know," I replied. "What are you going to do?" At first, I didn't know. Then I looked at my savings account. 3 years of careful planning, enough for the wedding I actually wanted, not the one being redesigned around my sister. Quietly, Michael and I began making new arrangements. A smaller garden venue across town had an open date the weekend before October 15th. It was intimate, elegant, exactly what I'd envisioned from the beginning. 25 guests, close friends, no competing vows. We booked it. We didn't tell my parents. October 8th arrived gently. The garden smelled like late roses and autumn leaves. I walked down the aisle toward Michael without an anniversary banner behind me, without anyone else's milestone overshadowing the moment. It was simple. It was ours. On October 15th at 4:12 p.m., my phone began buzzing. "Claire, where are you?" Mom's voice was shrill. "Guests are arriving." "I'm in Napa," I said calmly, "on my honeymoon." Silence. "What do you mean honeymoon?" Dad demanded in the background. "I mean, I got married last weekend. You can't just abandon your wedding." "I didn't abandon my wedding. I had my wedding. What you planned was Emily's anniversary party." Panic replaced anger quickly. Vendors were asking for payment, the caterer required final confirmation, the venue expected the remaining balance. "You have to pay your portion," Dad insisted. "I paid for my wedding," I said evenly. "I'm not funding Emily's vow renewal." Emily grabbed the phone next. "You're ruining everything. Guests are here." "No," I said quietly. "You did that when you decided my wedding was expendable." By evening, half the vendors had canceled due to unpaid balances. The anniversary celebration collapsed under the weight of its own budget. Michael and I watched the sunset from a vineyard terrace while my family scrambled to explain to 150 guests why the joint celebration had dissolved. The fallout was messy. My parents were embarrassed. Emily was furious. Extended relatives called, confused about what had happened. When I calmly forwarded copies of the contracts showing I had not signed off on the anniversary additions, the narrative shifted quickly. Some family members apologized, others stayed silent. But something important changed. For the first time in my life, I didn't absorb the responsibility for fixing it. I'd spent years being the reliable one, the emergency contact, the financial safety net, the calm problem solver. Saying no felt foreign at first. Then it felt freeing. Weeks later, Mom called and said softly, "We didn't realize how unfair it had become." I didn't argue. I didn't gloat. I just wanted one day that was mine. I got it, and I learned something that no $63,000 invoice could teach me. Being the responsible daughter doesn't mean you owe everyone access to your milestones. Sharing is generous. Sacrificing yourself entirely is not. My wedding day was never meant to be a group project. It was meant to be the beginning of my marriage, and I chose to protect it.